we have a fuel pump issue. We're trying to start this thing and won't start. We're gonna have to check the fuel pump. I think that it needs to be replaced. What we've already done is we've already removed the back bumper support here, and then the plastic covering that goes over top of that. Not that that's necessary, but in this case it's already been removed. On this Jeep here, there is no skid plate, but on some of them there is. There's a steel skid plate that covers the gas tank. But there is that heat shield in the back there that we're likely gonna have to remove. So we'll remove that heat shield back there. If you did have the skid plate would be mounted underneath of your receiver hitch. So you would have to remove your receiver and the skid plate altogether, because those bolts would be along the side, on either side of the gas tank there. In our case, we don't need to do that, so we don't have to worry, but we do have our 2 straps here. So there's going to be the 1, 2 straps, and the fasteners will be in behind the gas tank. We should also have an electrical plug to disconnect, the fuel line, of course, and a vent tube. Once we've disconnected all of those things, then we have the filler hose and neck on the driver's side. So here's where the filler hose is. Our disconnects will be in here somewhere, likely on the other side of the frame there. There should be where we can disconnect it there. After everything's disconnected, then we can let the gas tank down with a jack or something like that. Don't know how much gas is in there, but there's some in there. Once we have the gas tank removed, then we can just simply replace the fuel pump and reinstall it. Now in my case, I want to go one step further, and I want to make this accessible from the inside. If we take a look at the Jeep here, and this is our center, and that gas tank is centered into the vehicle like this. So just off center. So we should be in around here. I don't know what my measurement is from here to here, but likely in this area here will be where you could access and get that fuel pump assembly out. And then I would just put a access hatch, and then you would make it so you could just remove the flooring and everything, and then you could do it from the inside. Some people would not want that because they wouldn't want to change a fuel pump and get fuel in the interior of the vehicle or anything like that. But some people like that option because it may take an hour to replace the fuel pump rather than, say half a day, with the ease and comfort of working at waist level rather than being underneath the vehicle and removing all this stuff and having it come down on you and stuff like that. So there's pros and cons to it. It's a choice I'm making. If you're interested in it, you can do the same. We've removed that heat shield in the corner on the passenger side here and behind the shock. And there's 2 bolts up on the frame there and another one in behind. There's the one in behind, and there's the 2 at the bottom of the frame. And that's our heat shield there, and those are 10 mil. Take those 3 out. Next, I lubricated these studs that we have. That nut's got a long way to come down, and I'm hoping I can get that with a deep socket. So there's one there, and then there's another one over on that side there. Just in behind the gas tank here is where that plug is. So those are the 2 ends of the plug there. This was all caked up full of dirt, and I had to chisel all that out of there with a pick, and consequently our little red locking tab was seized in there, and it basically damaged it trying to remove it. And even after this was removed, the dirt and grime in there, this wasn't coming out easy, so had to work at it to get that unplugged. And I guess the first thing before you get too carried away would be you want to check and make sure that you've got power coming to this plug here. Another interesting thing that we found was this is cut, and that doesn't look like it's wore from the frame or anything like that. That's a straight clean cut there, so I don't know what happened, but that's not normal. But if we look in behind there on the other side of the frame,
This is where we're going to disconnect those clamps to undo those hoses for the filler hose and basically the vent line. So the last two things that we have should be right in here, which should be our fuel line and our vent line that are going straight to that pump there. And that should take care of all our connection points that we need to disconnect to remove this gas tank. When we refer to the manual here, we've got 8W-30-10, and on this one here, we're gonna have our fuel pump module. So we've got our power coming in, it's going to that fuel pump relay, and then it comes down, and then this is our fuel pump module. And if we take a look here, we're looking at dark green and white is our power feed into the pump. So we're gonna check that with a test light at the back of the vehicle. So at the back here, we take a look at that plug. We want to probe that green wire, which should be this top corner one right here, and we see that we don't have any light, and that's also with the ignition on just before start, so that we can see if we got power coming back here, when we do not right now have power coming back. Just want to take a look at our fuse block here under the hood. Right there is our fuel pump. So we take a look right here. This is our fuel pump relay right there. So what I did was I took the one that was in there, took it out, put a new one in, probed it again, still nothing. Looking a little further, we've got the automatic shutdown system. So that is the ASD right there. So this is the automatic shutdown relay. I pulled that, put a new one in there, tried again, probed it, got nothing. As I understand it, both of these have the same feed. It's an orange wire, and that is coming from this fuse right here, which is indicated in the manual as fuse 19. But if you take a look, it's not really labeled here, and it's also not labeled in here as to let you know that it's fuse 18. So back on the manual here, this is the fuse box underneath the hood there, and if we take a look and we scroll up, there it is, F18 15 amp. That's that fuse 18. So I pulled that and it was good. We take a look and we're looking at 8W74. And here is where we find out that everything is common to that fuse 18 right there. Fuse 18, 15 amp. And it's an orange wire, and you can see where it joins here, and it's going to go to our automatic shutdown, and it's also going to go over to our fuel pump relay, and then it also goes to all these other things as well. So where do these two connect? Now we look at this page here, and that's 8W-30-23. And as we take a look, now we're looking at our power control module, or PCM. If we take a look here and we scroll over, we've got our 5-volt supply, and it's going to come up and it splices and it goes to our manifold absolute pressure sensor, and then we've got this one here, throttle position sensor, and both of those wires are white and black. Here's our map sensor here, and you just unplug that, and then we're going to probe in here, and we're going to find if we have 5 volts. Over here is our throttle position sensor, and again, unplug that. We're going to use something to get in there. I'm just using this to try and get my connection. It's a really fine wire that goes into there, and then I just touch my probe to the end of this to get the reading. Now back on the machine here, we're going to set our machine to DCV, direct current volts, and I'm going to set it to 20, and then when we probe it, I'm going to have my negative hooked up to the negative battery, and then I'm going to use my positive to, that's our power feed, right, that's coming in. I've got my connection there, and I've got my connection on the battery, and we take a look, and we do in fact have 5.08 volts. I've checked, this is the throttle position sensor. I've also checked that one, and I got the same reading there. As we dig in a little deeper, we're going to refer to these drawings here, and we've got 8W-30-8. And when we come down here, what we're looking at is there's the power control module, and then we're looking at this orange wire that's coming in. That's a positive. All right, so you got your battery coming in. This is going through and coming back around, and this is going to be our positive feed. So that is a positive wire that we need to check. Here we have our ground wire, which is G104. And then if we switch over to this page over here, we're going to look up, and that's 8W30-9. And what we're looking at on this side, again, is our positive coming in. And we take a look at the top, we got fuse 20, fuse 15. We're tracing them down. They're both coming in. And that's going to be a yellow and red wire. And this is another positive. So one of them is continuous power, and one of them is keyed on power. And again, if we look over here, then we're going to have our grounds that are going to that G104. In order to get at this PCM in the wiring, we're going to have to remove that water jug. And in order to do that, we have electrical connection right here. And then we're going to have our hose that goes to the radiator right there. Here is that jug, and ordinarily you would just remove these two bolts here, which are 10 mil, and then another one up at the top, which is 10 mil, and that jug would come right out of there. But this one here, it was spinning. It's broken on the back side here. It's just spinning, it's not coming off. So I had to remove the whole bracket, and then there was just two nuts here to hold that on. That was again 10 mil. I guess those are two 10 mil bolts to hold that bracket on, and they're both located down in there. One there, one there. So that gets the water jug out of the way so that we can get in there for that. C140 is on the end here, which is black, and that's this plug here, which is black. And then 141 is white, and 142 is gray. So we're going to be testing this one here. What we're looking for is that orange wire that's on here. So orange, and then we have red and yellow. So if we probe that one here, this is ignition off, and we have our light on. That ends up being the red and the yellow. So now we're going to switch our test light over to the positive on the battery here. Right here is that G104 ground location there. And again, we have the ignition switched off. So we have the light come on there, but you know, I can touch it in a couple spots and it won't come on. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to definitely clean this ground up and make sure that we got a really good connection there, and make sure that we get our light on. So again, this is with the ignition shut off. We'll try it again with the ignition on now, same location, just for the ground. Again, we can touch a few spots. It's not turning on, but we grab a spot and it does come on. So for sure, we're going to clean that ground location. The next thing we want to probe is that orange wire. So the red and yellow one was down here, and it comes on, but it also came on when we didn't have the ignition on. So now we want to try our orange one. And there we go, we try that orange one, get a good connection there. We've got the light on there. So those are our two power feeds. One is constant power, and one is just keyed on power. Orange is keyed on, red and yellow is constant power. And it also too, if you wanted to check, you can disconnect this plug here, right? So this is where the battery feed is coming into this plug, and then from there is going to the PCM. So you could check it here as well. What I did was I disconnected that black plug up there, and here's the other side. So this is the battery side. The battery is bringing the power in. Then we make our connection right there. That's the PCM side that goes down and then comes to the wires that are going to go into the PCM. So if you could see that, that's the battery side. That is your yellow and your red wire. So that is your constant power. We still have the ignition on, so now we'll test the orange next, and the orange is the key on. And that right there is the orange, that's the key on there. So we've got our power to the PCM, and then we have that ground. If we clean the ground and we don't have an improvement there, we've got ground and power to the PCM. The PCM is likely damaged and not controlling properly, and that is why we don't have any power to our fuel pump in the back. So we want to clean up that dirty ground connection that we have here on the front of the engine, and to do that, what I did was I removed the battery tray, and there's a series of bolts for that, which were 10 mil. So you have one here, 1, 2 there. You'll have 2 more right there and right there. So it should be a total of five bolts to get that out of there. Also too, we're going to remove the alternator and get it out of the way. So we have one here. These are going to be 9/16, one here, and a long bolt on the bottom. That long bolt on the bottom will go here. So that's a 9/16, and the other one there is a 9/16. Remove those two, and then we just get this out of the way. All the wiring is still hooked up. So then we have a 1/2 inch that's holding this oil dipstick tube on. We just remove that just so we can wiggle this out of the way as we need to get things out of there. On the floor here we can see our components. We have our tensioner, which is bolted first to the block, and then we have our coil, which is bolted straddles this tensioner here. So the first the little nuts on the end, those are going to be 1/2 inch, and the final bolt is going to be a 9/16 to remove that. So then when we removed our coil, the top pin broke off of there. So there's our pin. So we found another problem here to fix along the way, but we removed all these components so that we can clean all the surfaces and get a really good ground. So we got those grounds cleaned up. We removed everything, cleaned all the surfaces off and stuff like that, cleaned it up real good, reassembled everything there. So we've got our alternator reassembled. We have our 2 9/16, one down there, one there, and then there, if I didn't mention it before, there's a plug that comes in off of here, out of the wiring harness, and it goes in and it plugs into this sensor for the air conditioning there. So we got that all reassembled. We've got our oil dipstick tube bolted on. We've got our tensioner pulley bracket bolted on. I found a used coil to put on there for the time being, and we reassembled all of that. Everything's all ready to go. Get it hooked up again. We're going to use a test light in the back and see if we have any power going to the back now. We proved the powers are good, and now we've cleaned the ground, and we'll see if we have anything in the back. So here in the back, again, we're probing that green wire. You can see that we have no power back here. The light's not lighting up. So I think that our next step is the PCM is failed. We'll replace the PCM with another one to see if we then have power coming to the back here. What we've done here is I've got another PCM. I've got everything all plugged in there, and we're going to check that power feed again to the rear plug going to the fuel pump. Okay, so again, we're probing that green wire. That's our power wire, and we still don't have a light on. So we got to really wonder what's going on here. So if we want to do a little bit of a review here, we started off with no light. We went back, we checked our fuel pump relay. We checked our automatic shutdown relay. Both of those ended up being good. We further went to make sure that our PCM is outputting power. That's why we checked the 5 volt coming out of the PCM. And then we proved our 2 powers into the PCM and also our ground. We then thought that the PCM was defective, so I just changed it, and we hooked up a new one, and now here we are right back at square one again. As we consult the book here, we're going to go back to 8W-30-10, and this is for our fuel pump module. And so we're probing it right here at the green wire. We're not getting anything, so we're going to trace our way back again. We've already checked our relay and that was good. So we're gonna check in here, and what do we have? We've got to go to plug C301 and plug C233. So if we check our location for these two plugs, C233 is a black one and it's right in here, and C301 is a neutral colored plug and is in the same location. And these are by the body control module, which is going to be on the driver's side underneath the dash. Now when I went underneath the dash to try and find that plug and see what's going on, this is the bullshit that I found. One of them for a fact is going to be the command start, back in the phase where everybody felt they needed one of those things. And as I look at these components, I can't identify them clearly, but it looks like at least one of these is some kind of anti-theft system. So now I got to figure out which one is connected into our system, which is, I do believe, preventing this vehicle from starting, because somebody's added this accessory anti-theft system or whatever it is in there. I mean, in all honesty, Jeep wiring is bad enough as it is, and then you got a condition like this where somebody makes it even more complicated by putting this crap in here. So I guess we could say to be continued.